take my mic out of the headset. Hi, everybody. Today is just a Q&A. There is no lab lecture / worksheet for this week. We do 2 lab worksheets for 2 weeks, and then we have a third off week, and that pattern just sort of repeats until the end of the quarter. So today is just questions and answers. If you have any questions, type them in the chat. I'm just going to hang out and answer questions either in chat or in speech. I have this ready if we have something that we need that for. We'll get started in 3 minutes, but go ahead and just hang out for now, and I'll see you in a bit. Hi, everybody. So again, this is just a general Q&A. The purpose of this is just to answer your questions, really. So I will be around to answer any questions that you have. Until you stop having questions, I guess, or we run out of time. Usually, these don't last very long. I think, like, probably 30 minutes is enough time to go over everybody's questions. But I am here for the whole time if you need me, so please use the time wisely. And let me get my tablet so I can actually write on something. So there is a question in the chat that was concerning mole ratios, but I need more information. Like, I can do a generic example, I guess, of a mole ratio, so let me click on this thing. Am I on the right layer? Oh, I already did that, okay. Okay. So, like, if you had, like, a compound that had these elements in it, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, and you didn't know what those numbers were right there. So the mole ratio would just be those numbers. And those numbers could be anything. So maybe they're like 2 to 3 to 2 or something like that. Or maybe there's something like this. And I'm not going to be able to do this in my head, unfortunately. I don't know, I'm just going to do that. Something like that. So you could get a ratio of moles, something like these numbers here. And then what you would do is you would just divide by the smallest number to turn them into something with integers. And actually, what this would be is when you did this, you should get something like that, which we can't have. We can only have integers. Yeah. Yep. No lab today. This is our off week. Weeks 4, 7, and 10. There's no lab. We do 6 labs. I kind of wish I had done 5 because writing them is really awful. You guys don't like doing the labs, but I don't like grading 72 of them. It's kind of miserable. So that's sort of a generic version of what a mole ratio would be. So if you know the number of moles something has, then you can put the mole ratio together by just making it like a pseudo formula. Part A question. Oh, of the lab. Oh, okay. There you go. That's the information I needed. Okay, let me find that. That's the stuff that you're turning in. This folder's done. That's a TV show I was watching. Here's the labs. Okay. I have like 90 folders open on my computer here, so. So, part A, question 4. Let me find that. So it says in a separate experiment. Actually, you know what I can do? Hold on. So if I do this. I'm actually surprised that didn't really copy super clearly, but that's okay. I think we can see the question. You guys already know what the question is because you have it on the lab assignment. But just so it's on the stream. So what you would want to do with this is that you want to use these numbers to determine what amounts of these things you have. And so you could figure out their masses pretty easily. And then what you want to do is once you know their masses, you can figure out how many moles there are. And then once you know the number of moles, you can then do the mole ratio. So kind of just like we did the empirical formulas in class. And I can't tell you the answer what it is specifically, because that would be me just giving you points. But you should get whole numbers. So if you get 1 to 1, that would be a valid answer. If you got 1 to 2, that would be a valid answer. If you got 2 to 1, that'd be valid. But if you got like 0.5 to 0.9, not so good. You're going to have to do some dividing, try and get rid of those fractions. The other information that I would suggest is that I would say, okay, well, if this copper is this amount, how do you get the oxygen out of this? Is there a algebraic technique or an analytical technique that you can use to determine how much of that was oxygen? Or I can't just tell you. If it seems like, well, duh, I just do this, then yeah. That's exactly what you do. Also, for anyone joining us, if you saw the deadlines on the screen like 10 minutes ago, they were wrong. Quiz 2 isn't due tonight. That's for my other class. They have 10 quizzes. You guys only have 6. So theirs come faster. But because their numbers are currently matching up with yours, I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, they have to do quiz 2 at some point. That's probably right. So the times on the screen are now correct. So make sure you do quiz 2 by Monday. I'm going to write quiz 6 over the weekend, hopefully, and have that ready for you to do. And lab worksheet number 2 is due tomorrow. I should have lab worksheet number 1 ready to return to you soon. I have like 24 of them left to grade. I actually found a mistake in how I was grading them, not in the grading key. The key was written correctly. I just didn't follow my own damn key. And as a result, labs are worth more than 25 now, so like you can get more than 25. I think only one student has done that. So any points you get above 25, I'm just going to give you as extra credit. Because I made some questions worth 0.5, and then I gave them a score of 1. Which is fine, like 2 points extra for everybody. What do I care? I have all the points. I can give you all the points I want. What you guys probably don't know is that I have this bag, and on the bag it says points, and all of my points are in there. I got them when I started teaching. And it's an endless bag. I just have all the points, so I can just give them all to you. It's fine. If there are other questions, let me know. Type them in the chat. I'd love to grade while I'm waiting, but I actually can't do that because Excel apparently eats up a lot of computer processing power, which surprises me because it's Excel. My worksheets aren't that intensive. Like, I'm not running an entire company in an Excel worksheet, but that's a good question. What section are you in? Are you in A, B, or C? I can look at your score right now and see if, like, I have a complete quiz. A, okay. Quiz. Obviously, I can't show this part on the screen. Is this quiz 2? Moderate. Okay, let me see if I can find. I have a record. I have 2 records. Yeah, you took the quiz twice. It looks like everything was submitted correctly. In terms of, like, what answers you put in there were registered. Ooh, this is the first time I've done these problems where you have to click on something, and I get to see where you clicked, which is kind of funny. I get to see where everybody clicked. I don't want to do that. I want to see this question. Looks like people are doing great on quiz 2 so far. Oh, goodness, I can only imagine that, yeah. So, when I'm making the quizzes, it does that to me, too. So, like, the gray columns on the sides is just like a dead area, and if you click over there, it just closes whatever I'm working on. And it's super frustrating. Like, I'll be working on a problem, and then I'll just accidentally click in the dead area, and then my problem closes, and it's like, well, where did it go? Yeah, Canvas is clunky as hell, and I just... Ugh. Here's how good Canvas is. They gave us a link to ask faculty to evaluate and give feedback on Canvas, and I was like, "Oh, I'll give you feedback, Canvas, for sure." As I grit my teeth and click on the link, I tried for 5 days, and the link was broken, and it just never connected me to the survey. I don't know if that's an administrator issue or a Canvas issue. Like, it linked me to the Canvas website, but is that the same thing for Part B? Let me see. I believe that that is the same thing. Oh, Canvas knows that I'm mad at it because I click my mouse really hard. That part's correct, yes. So anything that's in milliliters, whenever you're dealing with molarity, you got to turn it back into liters. So that calculation will change based on the units that you're needing. I gave the numbers. I gave the numbers in the problem in milliliters, and then I just wrote them as liters in the calculation. Oh, I see what you're asking. Okay, so the reason that you're finding the volume of HCl is because that is where the moles of HCl were in the solution that you before you titrated it. So if you wanted the molarity of it after the titration, then yeah, it would go down because the volume is increasing. But I want to know what the concentration of the acid in the bottle is. And that concentration is the same no matter how much of that I take. But if I titrate it, then the current molarity changes. So we use the volume of HCl that was put into the flask because at that time, its concentration matches the bottle. And that's what we're solving for, is what's the concentration on the bottom? During the lecture when we were doing molarity, we were doing what was known as a dilution. And when you do dilutions, the molarity of the solution that you've made is just whatever state it's in. Like either before it has a molarity or after it has a molarity. But when you're doing a reaction, the molarity is known at the start, and then it will change later because, like, as you add solution of other stuff, if it reacts, it will go away. But if it doesn't react, it will get diluted. So you just have to be kind of careful about what application you're doing. And it sounds like you did it right, yeah. We do a lot of this stuff at 162 and 163. So for now, I'm just giving you very elementary calculations. So if you're looking at these and thinking like, man, 140 was way harder. Yeah, it was. That's kind of by design. 161 will get very difficult starting tomorrow, actually. That's probably not the news that you wanted to hear, but there it is, straight from the dragon's mouth. The dragon being me. I mean, dragons can pose as orcs. That's a thing that happens. Although I do kind of like straight from the orc's mouth because I was trying to just change the expression Yeah, straight from the horse's mouth. But the first thing I thought of was dragon for some reason. But straight from the orc's mouth has the additional caveat that you might mistake it for me saying just straight from the horse's mouth. Other questions related to the class. Chapters 1, 2, and 6 so far. When is your first exam? That's a good question. I want to say week 6 Monday, but I don't know those questions off the top of my head. I looked them up in the syllabus. So let me find that. That's the wrong class. There we go. So there's a giant calendar at the end of your syllabus. Yeah, week 6. Week 6 Monday. The way that that's going to work is I'm going to open the exam on Monday night. So, like, I'll wait until, like, midnight of Sunday/Monday when the day ticks over. I'll hit a button and the exam will appear. And then the next day when right before I go to sleep, I will close the exam. So you get 24 hours to do it. You do it anytime during that day. You do get 2 attempts. I forget how much time I give you on an exam. I want to say it's an hour, but I might give you more time. What did I quote? Might be 2 hours. I forget which class is which. Oh, 90 minutes. Okay. So you'll have 90 minutes to do the exam. I don't actually know what I'm going to do for questions on the exam. I'm probably going to... Yeah, you'll have 90 minutes. So you get 90 minutes per attempt, I should say. But you can do the exam anytime that day. I don't care. I know a lot of instructors are like, no, you must be here at this specific time. And you must take it during this window. And I'm just like, whatever. The caveat for that is, though, that I am going to restrict your question view so that you can only see one question at a time. That will discourage you, presumably, from, like, snapshotting the pictures and then sending them to other people, because that will eat all your time. There will be a lot of questions. And so if I inconvenience you slightly, it makes it very difficult to plagiarize. And that's not really going to super help you anyway, because you're going to have a random assortment of questions. Nobody's exam will be alike, so the odds of 2 people getting the same question are very small. I should say questions. The odds of 2 people getting the same question are probably like 1 in 5, actually. But the same exact exam is virtually impossible. Yeah, I actually got an email from the president yesterday. President of the college, I should say. Whenever I say president, I mean Daria, president of the college, not dumbass and chief or whatever you want to call him. Daria sent an email saying that, like, limited campus things were opening up. So I know, like, the nursing program started back up. I want to say it's today, actually. With very strict social distancing and personal protective equipment rules. Our department, chemistry, is not considered like an urgent in-person department, so we will not be going back to campus this quarter. I know summer quarter is also going to be online. Will the exam be formatted similar to the quizzes? Yeah, by necessity. I don't have a way to make them different. Basically, I have like 9 question types, and I've already removed 2 of them because they don't grant partial credit. So they will be very similar questions to the quizzes. However, I think there's going to be more multiple choice. And the reason for that is because I can write a bunch of multiple choice questions and put them in a bank, and then have it just randomly give you 20 of them. That wouldn't be your entire exam, by the way. Like, you wouldn't just have a 20-point multiple choice exam. You'd also have calculation questions and stuff like that. But those are easier to randomize because I can just make the program type in a formula. Like, for the question about how many coins does Monty weigh, or whatever it was, um, I basically did the problem on paper, and then I typed that command into the computer as if it were a calculator, and just, like, instead of writing Monty's mass, I just wrote Monty, and it would randomly generate a number. Am I teaching 162 in the summer? No, I am not teaching anything in the summer because I get paid more not to. Thanks, unemployment. That's actually true. The wages that I am paid to teach one summer class are less than what I would get for not working at all. So I don't work in the summer. And if that sounds ridiculous to you, congratulations. We live in America where education is undervalued. My salary is not that great, which is why I teach 4 classes. Then my salary becomes pretty good, but I do have a lot of work, which is why I'm still grading your lab number 1. I got 48 of 72 of them done. And I'll finish the rest of them today, probably. It's not how I expected the Q&A to go, where I'm insulting various people who are above me and then criticize the system that pays me. And there are still 23 of you watching, so that's, that's not what I expected either. I have 2 degrees. So my bachelor's degree is in chemistry, and my master's degree is in inorganic chemistry. Although I did a lot of organic with my degree. I'm actually an organometallic chemist, which is basically first year chemistry and second year chemistry. I did all of that forever, with a little bit of third year chemistry. And I did that because, like, metals are really cool. Most of my undergraduate research was with uranium, and most of my graduate research was with platinum. So I'm really good at taking uranium and platinum and making chemical waste out of them. Um, but I did a bunch of catalysis too. I do actually have published papers with my name on them. I believe I have 2 for undergrad work. I don't know if I got anything for grad work. I hated grad school. I was not a researcher. I love the teaching part, though, which is why I'm here. Could you volunteer to be a teaching assistant? I don't think our department actually has the funds to do that. So, officially, we couldn't hire students to be graders. If we could, I would be so happy. I'd be like, here, grade all these things. Here's the key. Um, that was something that I asked. I don't know if you know who Mark is. Mark Contulis. He's another faculty member. Mark was the one who was the person that I interviewed with. And one of my first questions was, do you have graders here? And his response was just laughter. Teaching Chem 162? No, I'm not teaching 162 in the summer. Oh my goodness, that does not sound good. I am very sorry to hear that. And it sounds like she is okay, so that's good. What am I teaching in the fall? So, fall is going to be very weird. Currently, I'm scheduled to teach 140 and 121. So, to answer your question, no question mark. But if fall is online, then what our department is doing, and we've had like 2 meetings about this, We might reschedule what everybody is teaching so that we have as few preps as possible. Like, I have 2 preps right now. I'm teaching 161, which is everybody here, and then I'm teaching 121, which is my evening lecture that you probably get a bunch of notifications from YouTube about, and you just ignore them. So that's 2 preps, which means that I have to design all the content for 2 classes. If we can get that down to 1 for all the faculty, or most of the faculty, then that's obviously easier because that's less time making new content. We haven't figured out what we're going to do or who's going to do what. But currently I'm not scheduled to do 162. Gosh, I don't know if I've done 162 for the last 3 years, actually. I usually do 161 or 163. So I can't have free requests for student volunteers, especially for classes that I'm currently teaching, due to a conflict of interest. But if you weren't in my class, I think that would be okay. Maybe. I don't know. That's kind of above my pay grade. I don't actually know the answer to that. We do actually have work-study positions, but usually they're like lab technician positions, which obviously right now isn't going to work because we're not going to the lab. Oh, goodness. Don't get me started on Rate My Professor. So, I actually read all the reviews on Rate My Professor, and I find them hilarious. Rate My Professor, I would say probably 70% of people who go to Rate My Professor go there because they have a purpose, and that purpose is to be malicious, I would say. So, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he marked me down. I'm going to rate my professor. Rah, 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 rah. That's me, a student, rating my professor. So I would... I don't know really how to say this other than to just say that, 1, rate my professor is bullshit. Like, I wouldn't trust anything that you read on there. But then 2, having read everything on Rate My Professor in my specific thing, I would say that to some degree all of it is factual. Like, Wes was mad at us when we didn't do something. Yeah, I that is true. I have been mad at my students before. But you have to watch out for things like Wes doesn't care. And like, really? I don't care about anything? That seems like a really awful approach to life. Like, how am I going to get home? I don't care. What's for dinner? I don't care. How are my students doing? I don't care. Like, yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, whenever you go to rate my professor, I would say, like, what you really want to do is you want to look for, and I'm not saying this because I have like a 3.5 or something. I think 3.5 is the sweet spot. Like, those are instructors that are, 1, they're not going to take shit, so you're going to have a good, you're actually going to learn something. And 2, they actually care. If you get professors that are in like the 5 region, what I think ends up happening is they're just really easy, or they actually tell you to go rate my professor or whatever. I don't ever tell my students to use rate my professor because that would change the scores that I get on there. If you go in the other direction and you get an instructor that's like 2, generally they mean well, but they might be new and they just haven't figured everything out yet. Or they might just be really rigorous with how they assign and assess stuff. And then at the end of the quarter, they curve everything up, but by then they've already gotten the bad ratings. So I know in physics, there are a lot of instructors that I interact with, and I see what they're doing in lecture, and I'm like, yeah, these instructors are super great. And then I go look at their rate my professor, and I'm like, who would rate this person with a 2? And the answer is most people, because those classes are really hard. And the students find them really difficult, and the first person they blame is the instructor. So, but I mean, sometimes people just want to like piss people off. So there's somebody in these videos that watches these lectures that downrates. They put a dislike on my movie every time. Without fail, I've had like 1, sometimes 2 dislikes on these videos. And I actually find that kind of flattering that somebody took the time out of their day to do that constantly. It's like I have my own little troll. But yeah, the Rate My Professor is full of salt. I love salt, but that's a little bit too much salt for me. Is there a 162 professor I recommend? Mark or Valerie are probably the best two that teach it frequently. Valerie is like me, but she is just an older woman. Like, she's as sarcastic as I am, but I think she's a little nicer. I'm a little more honest, I think. And then Mark is actually very similar to me. Mark does all of the 160 classes. He's a very traditional lecturer. Now, as far as like online stuff is concerned, I don't actually know the answer to that. So I know in person, Mark does traditional lecture where he just draws on the whiteboard. He doesn't have slides or anything. But he's really good and he cares very much. Uh, Valerie does slides like I do. And I think actually Valerie's lectures are probably the most similar to mine. However, you guys are seeing me online and not in person. Oh my goodness, like everybody's hitting like now. So I could actually see what you guys are doing, which I find hilarious. For what it's worth, likes and dislikes, I don't give a shit. I actually delete the view so that people don't see them and like go, "Oh, this is a professor. I'm just going to sit there and hit dislike." Uh, you can still hit the buttons even though I have disabled it, although I don't know if I disabled it during the stream. And I get to see the numbers, but I don't give a shit. Like, I don't look at them. The other thing I do is I disable all the comments just because I don't want people, like, putting inappropriate stuff. Like, there was somebody in this chat that, for a few lectures, you might remember the person who was asking about, like, oh, I'm late, can we start the lecture over? And I ended up timing that person out, and I haven't seen them since. I believe that was a troll from online, and if not, then I banned them from the chat. That's fine. You're allowed to support my channel. That's fine. Yeah, so that person, the best thing you can do with those sorts of people is to ignore them. And, like, you could actually see in the video, I went back and watched, because I was doing research. And this is the first person that had, like, a really inappropriate comment the first lecture I had. But I didn't know how to, like, squelch it. Yeah, it was the guy who was, like, don't answer my question for me. I want the instructor to answer. And I was just like, okay, I'll answer for you. Mute. I missed somebody's questions back here. Yada, you asked about tech positions for work study. Yeah, we do have that. Obviously not right now, because we don't have any lab work to give around. Depending on what your major is, you could do chemistry or biology. I don't know how often we do it. And I actually don't even know who you would ask about that. But if you were interested in that sort of thing and we were on campus, I could direct you to the department chair who would have more information. So, like Samita. Samita would definitely know. Mostly, like, I don't know what the administrivia is behind that. I know, like, I would introduce you to the lab tech, and, like, shit, I've been the lab tech before. Our lab technician had to take a leave of absence for about 2 months for personal reasons. And during that time, I was the lab tech, and that's hard. It's hard to be the lab tech. Is that Caitlin in geology? Caitlin is a lab tech, and I think she might also be an instructor. I don't know her very well. I just sort of use that hallway to go to physics. We're actually really short on geology instructors, it turns out. I think that Caitlin, that's right. I was going to call her Christine, but that's physics. I think Caitlin was initially hired to be the geology laboratory technician. And then Steve, Steve is the department chair of geology. And we used to have a geology part-timer. His name is Hal, and Hal got a position in Oregon, so he left. But currently, so the dean of the math and sciences, so the guy who's in charge of all of the maths and sciences, his name's Al Friedman. Al's technically my boss for the next 6 weeks, and then he's actually a geology professor, so he's going to start teaching geology. At least that's my understanding. Like, the whole COVID-19 thing has completely, like, screwed everything up. I actually have an interest in geology. If I had not taken chemistry as my career, I would probably have done either geology, atmospheric science, or meteorology. When I was a kid, I did a lot of like science Olympiad stuff, and one of the events that I always just got stuck with was geology because nobody else cared. And I was like, "Oh, this is actually really cool." So I had a book and I memorized a bunch of rocks, and I didn't place in it, but I was still super interested in geology. Yeah, there are not very many geology majors, but it is a super important field of study, and you can actually do a lot with it, especially being in the Pacific Northwest where it's volcano central. Like, like that is a useful thing to have knowledge of, I think. Also, if you are a geology major, I would encourage you to go meet the dean. Well, I mean, the dean currently. He probably won't be the dean when the college opens back up, but he will be on campus. And his name's Al. On part A of Lab 2, and ask for the formula of the unknown hydrate, empirical or molecular formula. So anytime you do these sorts of analyses, it's always a empirical formula. So the only way you can get a molecular formula is through mass spec. So when you get the answer, you will get an empirical formula out. The other thing to note, and I don't think we've really explicitly said this, but all ionic compounds are empirical formulas. Because you can't have a molecule of an ionic compound. It's just a lattice that goes forever. That's sort of beyond the scope of this class, I guess. Because we don't really do much with ionic solids in 161. We talk a little bit more about it in 162. Part A number 4 is the numbers in the formula, just the numbers in the ratio. I gotta look at the problem again. Hold on. That's the syllabus. That's part B. Where am I? There's number 4, okay. Oh, I lost a parentheses on my question here. That's okay. So when it says what is the mole ratio and then what is the formula, you just take the numbers straight from the ratio. But when you make the ratio, make sure that they have whole numbers in them. So like if you had a ratio of 0.8 to 0.2, I would reduce that to 4 to 1. And by reduce, I mean divide by the smallest number. Other questions. I didn't expect for this to turn into gossip hour, but that's okay. What should I have for lunch? I would normally just say something like pho or pizza or something delicious like that. But honestly, like now I would just say like anything that you have in your pantry, anything that prevents you from going outside. To answer your other question, there are like 79,000 indicators, and the indicators actually have very different pH ranges, so they have very different uses. Um, Phenolphthalein is one of the ones we use because it has a really obvious change. It turns from colorless to dark pink. It actually changes around pH 9, which is not super great for acid-base titrations. Bromothymol blue is a much better one because it goes between blue and yellow, and when it's at pH 7, it's green. I don't know a lot of them off the top of my head. There's like methyl red, crystal violet. They're all very bright colors. A lot of them are like things Bob Ross paints with. Like, I think one of them is like alizarin red or something. I was like, I'm sure Bob Ross painted with that. Stuff like that. Um, Let me see if I can find a table of indicators. So, different indicators for pH. And then I can paste a link or something. Oh, you know what I can do? Oh, I can't post a picture in chat, can I? Oh, I can just link you to the Wikipedia page. So here's the Wikipedia page. And then on the right there, you can see the color chart. And those are actual colors of the indicators. A lot of them are just like red to yellow. Let's see here. I would like experience conducting research. Um, so I don't teach a class that's really good for research, but we do have a course on campus. It's called Chem 199. Or maybe it's 299. I don't know what our research number is. Um, and what you would do is you would devise an experiment, and the faculty basically help you come up with that. My particular interest isn't in research, so I might be a bad choice for that. I had a really bad experience with research, so I don't really want to get into my experience with research, but I realize that like other people are much more capable of doing it than I am. So I could, at the very least, point you in the right direction to people who did do research and enjoyed it. Like Samita. Samita's a really good example of someone who would be great for doing research with. Yeah, cabbage water is a good indicator, and I actually don't know which indicator that is. That's something that I would have to actually research. Like, I would have to look up what the chemical is in red cabbage, because that's a very good indicator. That, gosh, I'm trying to think of like what the colors are, but I've done this like I do the cabbage experiment like once a year, and I never remember the colors. Yeah, the purple one I knew. Oh, it's pink when it's acidic. Okay, I was like, there's green somewhere in there, and I don't know what end it is. But yeah, you get a really vibrant array of colors, and if you tune the pH well enough, you get the whole rainbow. And it's really bizarre, like that cabbage does this. I know that there are flowers out there. In fact, it's on this Wikipedia page, which is what reminded me that if you plant them in soil that has a lot of aluminum, aluminum is acidic, and so it turns a certain color. It looks like it turns blue. And if you plant them in soil that has a lot of basic stuff, so like maybe like calcium or something, um, then they turn pink. We'll cover pH in 163 in a lot of detail. All the detail. Any more class-related questions? We're getting towards break time, and like I can't imagine that we need to do a second hour, since we're just mostly talking about random stuff here. But if you have any questions, let me know in the next few minutes. We'll probably shut the stream down around 1:55-ish or so. Because I have more lab reports that I have to grade today. I'm gonna try and get those uploaded to you later today. I still have to go back and do quiz 1. That's after lab 1. But yeah, I have 48 of 72 quiz 1s done. Because of how Canvas is structured, sections A and B are all lumped together. So I just sort of go through the list and put the grade in my gradebook wherever it is. What is my best tip for studying chemistry? Do as much of it as you can. So the best analogy that I can give, I gave it in the syllabus. I don't think a lot of people really know what the context is. You don't become good at anything by just sort of doing a little bit of it. You have to do a lot of it constantly. So for instance, if you're playing like a video game, like at the start of the game, you're playing Mario or something. Obviously, yeah, you suck because you've never played it before. But then when you come back to play it the next day, you're better. And then the next day, you're better still. And you get better and better and better the more often you do something and for longer. But there is a limit to that. So if you like studied for 6 hours, the first 2 hours might go great. And then after that, your brain is just like, I want to do anything else. And nothing you pick up at that point is absorbed. So the best strategy that I would say is if you can set aside 2 hours a day to do chemistry and do anything, like just read the text, do practice problems, etc. That's how you would develop proficiency. And if you get stuck, use resources. So I know a student here has a Discord channel that they have been inviting me to repeatedly, and I keep saying no because I can't do the conflict of interest thing. But presumably all of those students are in there, and they're all in the same boat as you. So if you talk to those students and ask questions, oh no, I can't join your Discord. I would like to, but I don't think that I should, is the problem. Yada can get you more information on that. Where was I? Yeah, so network with students who also have questions, and like use each other as sounding boards. Like, oh, I can't solve number 8. Oh, I was able to solve it. Here's what I did. And if you can teach each other how to do problems, that is a very good thing. So teaching is one way of you learning how to do something. And like just the act of explaining something to another person will compartmentalize that knowledge in your brain. What is my knowledge on CRISPR? I only really know what CRISPR does. So like you can sequence. Oh, do they sequence proteins or genes? My goodness. So I'm not a biologist. That's the first thing I'll say. My knowledge of biology is very spotty. I've taken one biology class and then just like read a bunch of stuff. So it's CRISPR sequences something. I want to say it's genes, which is basically protein sequencing. If you're just asking on my opinion on genetic engineering, I think that it's important. Genetic engineering gets a lot of shit because people don't really know what it means to edit genes. When in reality, we've been editing genes since the Stone Age. Like, for example, corn. Corn is a really good example. So corn used to not be very productive. Like, the kernels on yellow corn were hard and there wasn't much meal to them. And there weren't that many. And so what people have been doing is that they've been selecting for, oh, I'm going to pick the seeds of the corn that has the most product, and I'm going to plant those, and I'm going to discard everything else. And then of all of those seeds that grow, I'm going to pick the seeds from the one that's the best, and then do that over and over and over again. And for things like with crops and such, that's actually really important. Rice, for example, has been fortified with nutrients because we've edited its genome, not necessarily through CRISPR, but I mean just through like selective planting and stuff like that. Oh, this rice held more iron or whatever, so let's plant that. So like for crops and stuff, I think that that's really important. For genetic disease, like nobody wants to have a genetic disease. Obviously, that's no good. So editing that sort of thing out would be useful, but you quickly get into the realm of like eugenics and ethical issues, and like none of that is okay. Like that's something that society in its current state is not prepared to answer. And I've played video games, like I played Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri long ago, and then the reboot of that, which was I think Beyond Civilization. And those are games where you play a postmodernistic society where like some of your research techniques are things like, oh, this is the mathematical model of how you behave in any situation. It's called ethical calculus. And like your entire society is built around this. Like, what is the correct way to behave? What does the math say? And then society adopts that, and that's how they act. Uh, in Alpha Centauri, there were factions that were entirely dedicated to a specific facet. Uh, the Civ that I always played in that game was the green Civ, just because I liked the music that played in the background for them the most. And so they were very just like, okay, we're going to preserve the economy, not the economy, the ecology. We're going to be as little of an impact on the planet as possible. And as a result of that, they could recruit the alien species that was on there. But other factions on that game would be things like, I'm trying to think. There was one that did like everything was about money. It was basically the billionaire guy. One person was just like, I want to produce everything. One person, there was like a religious cult which was all about military. There was the university cult which was all about science, stuff like that. I totally went off topic on that question. That's okay. Specifically for Discord, you can't message people without becoming a friend, so send a friend request, and when that goes through, then you can message them, and then they can send you the invite link. Letter recommendation, that's actually pretty easy. So all you have to do is send me a request at the end of the quarter, and based on your grade, I can write you a letter recommendation. My general rule is that if you can get a B plus or better, I will write you a letter recommendation. We are just generically talking about random stuff now. Just, I mean, it's Q&A. It doesn't have, I never said it had to be about the class, but yeah, I could totally do a letter recommendation. And the only things that I really require for letters of recommendation are who am I sending it to? Because I think that I am supposed to like send a sealed, signed envelope with the letter to wherever. And then like, what's the context? Do you want a generic letter of recommendation? Do you want it specifically for like, hey, this student is going into research, or maybe you're going into like a community service position or something like that? I've had students ask me that sort of thing. Oh, homeless cat. I love cats. Yeah, you can totally do that. UW would probably be more appropriate because I went to UW. I did not go to the medical school, but also letters of recommendation are sort of, I would call them short term. So, like, if you ask me for a letter of recommendation, it should be within 2 years of you being in my class. Otherwise, people who read them don't really take them seriously. Like, if I got a letter of recommendation from somebody who knew a student 8 years ago, and that person didn't talk about like how they keep in touch, or like they've talked about projects or things like that, and they just had a generic letter of like, oh yeah, he was a great student 8 years ago, I'd be like, I don't know if I trust this person's evaluation, and that would look kind of suspect. But if you were like in my class within 2 years, I could totally talk about that because I would have you in my memory. I'd be like, oh yeah, this is the student that engaged with me on my YouTube channel. I could even link that, and like that's useful information. I have this personal opinion that letters of recommendation are just sort of a formality. Like, it makes me think of those television shows or movies or whatever where it's like you're just using a connection to get your foot in the door because the person that you're applying to has no time and they can only see somebody who has been vetted by someone else. And like, I think it's a bunch of bullshit, but unfortunately it's the bullshit that we have to deal with. So I'm happy to play the part to help you out. I still take it seriously when students ask me to write a letter of recommendation. I just think that the idea is just like, ugh. And I feel bad that you have to go through that. All right, let's do a last call for any questions. Any, like, related to the class questions, I should say. So, like, lab or quiz or whatever. Or content, really. Yeah, some of the labs are not going to be very long. I don't even know what the next lab is. I think it's Beer's Law. Beer's Law should be really short. Two orange cats and a calico cat. Oh, man. So my calico cat was named Hazel. I didn't name her that. That was the name that she had when I adopted her from a friend, and I adored Hazel. Um, I don't really know a good calico name. I'm trying to think of a good orange cat name. My cat when I grew up was named Razzie because she was a little rascal. She was a Himalayan kitten. Creamsicle could be pretty good. I'm trying to think of like orange things that aren't like carrot. Like naming a cat Carrot is kind of silly, but I don't know. Maybe it would stick. Or like Poppy or something. Are poppies orange? Pumpkin. Pumpkin's pretty good, actually. I do like food names a lot. Poppy flower. I mean, they're more red, but that could actually. Oh, well, California poppy is orange. Poppy could be a good name. I mean, I guess that if it's a boy or a girl, that matters too. I think Poppy would be a good name for a girl kitty. Carrot would just not be a good name for any kitty. Carrot would be a good name for a bunny. Most orange cats are male. I didn't actually know that. I knew most calicos are female. I think almost all calicos are female. But I guess it makes sense that there would be something that goes the other way too. I don't know. I feel like very names are very important and personal for pets. Like, I want to get a pet pig. Like, at some point, I'm gonna get a house, and then I'm gonna have a pet pig. And there's only two names that I can think of for my pet pig. One is Ganon because I love Legend of Zelda, and then the other one would be Boris, where I actually spelt it Boaris. And like, I won't tolerate any other name for my pigs, but other people would be like, "Oh, I want to name it Winkers or Squeaky or Big Pink or whatever." Letter rec from the UCC's head honcho, Dean of Students. I don't actually know the Dean of Students. Um, I think the best way for you to do that would be to get involved, maybe in, uh, oh, what is it called? Student council. That's what I would say. So, like, if you go, I know that in the Parks building, the student council and all of the representation for the student government is in that building. Like, if you want to get involved on campus, that would be a really great way to network people beyond what department you're working in. I think that that's probably the best thing that you can do. Because if you went straight to the college president's office and was just like, hey, can I get a letter of recommendation? If I were her, I would be like, huh? Who are you? And why do you want this? Like, obviously we want to help, but writing a letter of recommendation requires us to be able to write something about you personally. Otherwise, it feels cookie cutter, and then it's not genuine. Like to the person it's being sent to. Student life. That's probably what it's called on campus. I walk by it all the time, and I'm like, student something. Like I could, if we were on campus, I could direct you right to the room. But my brain is such a mess right now with all this coronavirus stuff. Like, that's interesting. I didn't know that about cats. I mean, I'm a cat person, but really my exposure to cats has always just been people have cats and I pet them, or people have cats they can no longer take care of, and so I do. That's how I adopted my cats. I adopted Hazel because uh, a friend's parent could not take care of that cat anymore, like due to health reasons, and the cat needed a home. And I was like, well, I'll take a cat. She lived to be 22 when I adopted her. I think she was like 16 or 17. She was ancient. And then I have Maya and Kresnik now, who I adopted from another friend who was also moving somewhere that wasn't allowing cats, and she just had nowhere else to live. Um, so I adopted her cats, and I don't actually know how old they are. I want to say that they're like 5. Cats have a third eyelid. That's kind of gross. All right, I'm gonna hit the button to put the title card on the screen. I think we've done enough Q&A for today. If you have any other questions about anything at all, really, send me an email. I'm happy to answer these sorts of non-class questions over email, by the way. There are some things that I might not have the information available on hand, and then I can either direct you to the correct resource or the correct person. But anything that you ask me, I'm more than happy to try and answer. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. This actually went a lot longer and a lot better than I thought it would. I imagined that I was going to sit here for like 2 minutes. Nobody would say anything, and then I'd be like, okay, well, guess the stream is going down. But if you guys have things that you want me to answer, like, I'm more than happy to do it. So I'll see you all tomorrow, I think, for... What are we doing tomorrow? We're going to finish Chapter 6. It's like mass percent and mass volume percent, stuff like that. And then we're going to start quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics is really scary. Like, here, I'll let you guys in on a little preview. So here's the normal slideshow that we have. I have a special quantum mechanics version, which is just everything at nighttime, which I put on the screen right now. And we'll just let that cycle through. But that's where we're going to end up going with this class. So Chapter 3 is quantum mechanics. We're going to talk about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, Schrodinger's cat, how light behaves, electron configuration, and all that sorts of fun stuff. And it's really, really bizarre to the point of where this class isn't satisfactory to explain it. We're going to just do the best that we can. No, we can't skip quantum mechanics. We have to do it. But until we do that, we can have the nice, sunny, bright EVCC. I actually find quantum mechanics to be super interesting. And if you can get a strong grasp on quantum mechanics, you can pretty much explain anything in science. Alright, I am going to hit the button to close the stream down. Thanks for coming out today. I'm happy I was able to answer everybody's questions. And if there's anything else that you need me to do, shoot me an email, use the discussion board, go join that Discord, and stay safe and stay healthy. Have a good one.